draft physics video. I have a couple of Daftloday videos. An hour almost. Death of DraftScience. Bad. Whatever that means. So, I guess I'll title this The Last Days of the Pedophile. Daftloday? Yes. Analyst of Draft Analyst. Whatever that is. Liar pants on fire. Ha ha ha. Not a chance. Tubby. New tab, yes, that's what we'll do. So, haven't watched it. It'll be crap, I'm sure. And, my computer's running kind of slow here. Come on, get to it. No doubt have to increase the volume. And...
okay, I'll spend a little bit of time analysing the analysis of DraftScience. See how he fares.
Yeah, sure.
Today. Yeah, I've watched the video. I mean, it's just rubbish. There's no details in here at all. There's none of this promise of this high physics that you're going to get the answers to these questions. No answers in this much.
Right.
And in fact, more wrong rhetoric. It's just so...
Okay, so this was the squeaky video. Timmy. Yes. Doing the, what kind of physics was it? Oh yes, the gravitational waves.
Bad that you can poke holes in it without even working at it too hard. So the first stupid premise is we have some kind of paradox. We have to give something up. So the speed of light, or v equals v1 plus v2. So as I pointed out in the other video, this v is not the real thing.
Okay, this is the first stupid premise. Huh?
Right. Yes, and I'll reiterate it. Two objects are moving. This v never happens. No object's moving this v. It's completely not a real thing. No thing is moving that speed. Let's say that again. Nothing is moving that velocity. Nothing. In the real world.
Calls it a premise. It's a formula. It's a model.
It's a model of nothing. A non-real thing.
It says, hey, I know, we can model velocities by saying, look, notice...
Nothing travels that velocity. If you want to model the force, then you can add v and multiply it times the mass and do v2 times the mass, and then you can come up with the force number of them combined. And that will be a real thing. The force of the impact of those two things hitting each other would be a real thing. The velocity of those two things added together is not a real thing. That's why it doesn't bother with this speed limit. The speed limit has nothing to do with this, because that never happens in reality. Shit, I have to say it twice? 3 times?
If I'm by the roadside and I fire my radar gun at the car and it reads 30 miles an hour, that's all good and well and expected. But if I drive at 30 miles an hour towards the same car, my radar gun stops working. Now it says 60 miles an hour. That's what the formula says.
Right, and it's wrong though, correct? The radar gun is incorrect. It's not measuring the actual velocity of the other car. It's adding two velocities together, and there is no thing that's going that speed. No thing is going that speed. So again, so this is the kind of physics they're defending. They're defending this idea that they can create a fake thing going a fake speed, just like they can create fake photons or fake tons that do magnetism, virtual ones, and virtual this, and dark matter, and all these fake things. So that's what they're about. They're about being fakers and liars. This isn't a fact. It has no factual truth, especially in the context of the speed of light being a limit. This doesn't threaten this at all. No threat whatsoever, because neither one of these things are threatening this, the speed of light. It's a fucking deception and a lie to pretend this threatens this. It's bullshit.
Formula says that there's no absolute frame of reference. Yeah, that all
No, who cares about your frame of reference? So why don't you put that in your fucking formula somewhere? Frame of reference BS that we invented. So another non-real thing of your invention, some framey thing of some kind. Alright, so where's your formula for your framey thing that proves that that's a reality? Where's your evidence of the frame thing as a reality? Your frame is just as fake as this V. It's a canard. It's a piece of crap, okay, that of your invention. It has nothing to do with reality.
Velocities, yeah, it can be that nobody's going to be able to find the preferred frame of reference. It seems to think
again, absolutely irrelevant to the speed of light. Neither of these velocities challenged. Neither challenged it. No paradox, no problems. No real thing was violating the speed of light.
It's his frame of reference, yeah? And it's like, oh, look, we're coming towards each other. No, I'm stuck still. You're the one who's moving. No, you're moving. No, who's moving? Yeah?
So he can do all that mush, but none of those little spots were threatening the speed of light. Even if they were going 99% of the speed of light, none of them were threatening it in any way whatsoever. There's no paradox. The guy called it a paradox. There's no paradox. No problem. Nothing that needed to be fixed here. So again, this is their decepto science.
I have the right frame of reference. So when Mendham can find an absolute frame of reference and prove that this V doesn't make any sense and thinking in terms of additive velocities. So you're on a train, yeah, and you know that your launch velocity of your catapult is...
So again, if the two items just go peaceably past each other, he claims that there was some violation of the speed of light because they passed each other going now one was going 3/4 of the speed of light and one was going half the speed of light, and he thinks there's some violation of a fundamental physical principle because the two things passed each other at that speed. No problems.
30 miles an hour. The train is going 40 miles an hour, and you shoot the catapult at the front of the train. You know that stone leaves with 70 miles an hour, approximately. You know, obviously there's a little bit extra.
Yeah, no, it's not even close, actually. Okay? No, so you have that wrong. You can't completely add the two well, I mean, if you're catapulting in front of the car, well, you can. If you're going sideways, it's going to be quite different.
Wind resistance inhibiting the catapult, and the fall-off velocity is quicker because it's got a higher wind resistance, but the curve of deceleration is different, but the instantaneous release velocity is essentially V1, the train velocity, plus the launch velocity of the catapult.
Right, so that's a real circumstance, right? That's not two things moving, that's one thing, and you add two velocities to it. So again, another complete canard, as if comparing those apples and oranges. Comparing giving, you know, this V is going 30 miles an hour and I make it go 70 miles an hour. He's saying that's the same thing as having a second vehicle going 40 miles an hour. No. That's just increasing the velocity of one thing. No mystery there. No, again, no paradox either.
And it's a mighty good suggestion. And we've found nothing that invalidates it.
We found nothing that invalidates it except the fact that you can't make any more evidence for your fake frames, at high speeds that change and warp light any more than I can prove the absolute zero reference frame. But maybe I can, because again, I'll argue that matter is changed by velocity, and our total velocity is having an impact on how quiet our matter is. And so you could quite, I think, measure how much motion there is in a piece of matter by measuring how cold you can get it.
Perception of there's a maximum speed limit. And apparently measurements involving the speed of light screw with this equation. But to all intents and purposes, it's a good model. It's
Okay, so again, you just keep saying, for all intensive purposes, this model that describes a non-reality is a good model of describing non-reality. Making up a fake vehicle going a fake velocity is good science. I say it's rubbish science, junk, garbage, and its only intent is to create a fake impression in the minds of the gullible.
not a descriptive model. That is, it's not.
It's not accurate. Yeah, that's the word you're looking for. It's not accurate.
Well, it is. It does have a qualitative nature, but the qualitative nature isn't as readily apparent as the
It's not a qualitative nature about anything real.
quantitativeness. And in science, we love and prize quantitative models.
Well, that's your problem again. I don't. This whole idea that somehow there's a problem between being both of those things, that having both quantity and quality of evidence.
Doesn't have to do with a single event in the real universe. It's just about two things passing, okay, going 60 miles an hour, and both of them can't help but see the event of passing as an event that takes place at 120 miles an hour. It's just what they see. It's not what actually happens. It's just a visual problem. And so...
But nobody's saying that.
Yes, no, you're wrong, Daftloday. The guy said it was a paradox and it needs to be fixed because there's some violation of some fucking principle that you can't have both things. That's what he said. You can't have both that formula and a speed limit. That's what he was. That was the canard, the false, the straw man creation of a paradox. So why don't you just lie some more about what the fucking guy was saying in the fucking video, liar?
Anything different, yeah? There's nobody claiming reality to any particular velocity, not even the total. The point is there is no absolute frame of reference.
Oh, so again, this point is you haven't proven the non-existence of this frame of reference, so that's just silly, and that wasn't what I was arguing. The thing I'm arguing is this fake paradox. And so again, you're saying he wasn't arguing a fake paradox. Of course he was. And that's why he was defending the existence, the need for relativity, because somehow we have to fix this problem. And Einstein fixed this non-existent problem. So you create a non-existent problem so you can defend Einstein's putrid and silly rationalization or justification. So it's a non-solution to a non-problem. And that way somehow you're, hey, look, we found the solution. And there was no problem. So it's completely fake evidence for a fake crime.
Yeah? So even your velocity, when you're on the train, is not factoring in, the Earth's rotational speed. Yeah? So that isn't the truth.
Who says? I mean, that's right. We certainly can't measure, just as you pointed out, the radar gun isn't going to detect the absolute or the real speed. So that's a function of our measuring devices. Yes, you can't measure the speeds from an absolute frame unless you're in the absolute frame. Okay, so yeah, from the non-absolute frame, you can't measure absolute speeds. Duh. I mean, gee, so that proves something? No, that doesn't prove anything except you don't have a measuring device in the quiet frame. That's all it proves.
Velocity. If you said to yourself, okay, what I can do is get off the planet, yeah, then you'll find yourself rotating around the sun, but you could reverse your thrusters, and then you'd start accelerating into the sun. So you could reverse your orbit of the Earth and have thrusters to counteract the gravitational effect of the sun, and you'd be static, in a sense, in the solar system. But the whole solar system is travelling around in a galaxy.
Right, so you can get outside the solar system, you get outside the galaxy, you can get outside of everything, and then you'll find your quiet frame, exactly. But some of those motions are actually going to be destructive. So some of the motions are going to be in the opposite directions and are going to be non-motion.
And okay, you can compensate and add a thruster in for that, but then the galaxy appears to be accelerating away from all the other galaxies, and you run out of thruster abilities to compensate for every one and determine an absolute reference frame.
So again, and that means there's no such thing. So because you can't measure it or you can't see it, it can't exist. So photons, I can't see photons going right past me right now. They're going right, oh, I can't see them, so they can't exist. Nothing I can't see could possibly exist. Is that your fucking idiotic argument? Because it's idiotic, you know. Really idiotic.
They make this fake paradox that somehow if V1 is going a little over.
So again, the or word is here. See, that's sort of a giveaway. This or this has to survive. They both can't. Dun, 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 dun. So again, lie some more about what the guy was saying in the video.
This half the speed of light, V2 is going a little over.
The paradox is that this simple thing, which works for all, you know, velocities until you get up to like 80-90% the speed of light, this is highly accurate. Highly accurate.
This is nothing. So there's nothing. There's nothing. This is a 2 + 2 equation. All right, except they're going 2 plus W. They can't resolve this because you can't add those two things because nothing is moving both those speeds. One thing isn't moving both speeds. They're not a one thing. There's no V. There is no thing Ving. Say it again.
Truth about our ability to measure things in the universe. The paradox is with the light aspect, not with this.
Like, it's something we have to do something. There's no V.
So he just keeps ignoring what the guy was saying. So there's nothing I can say about that except just keep lying some more.
Being higher than the speed of light, that means your perception will be faster than the speed of light. Essentially, you will.
Your perception is, you're just talking gibberish now. Your perception is faster than the speed of light. What?
Okay, so he doesn't understand that if I'm in a car and I'm watching another car, that's my perception. So if I'm standing outside the two cars and I'm watching the two cars, they're going 30 miles an hour each. If I'm in one of the cars and I'm looking at the other car and the light's bouncing off of it, I will be fooled by the light bouncing off of it and have the impression that the car is moving faster than 30 miles an hour. I will see it moving 60 miles an hour. He just pointed out how the radar gun will be fooled by the exact same phenomenon. It will not measure it accurately. My perception will not see the truth. There's nothing wrong or incorrect with that statement, you fucktard.
Please explain that. Go right.
I just did.
Write that up in your paper, you know, on the website.
Why should I bother? It's trivial and obvious.
Tonight. I don't want more bullshit vocabulary to explain and get out of that statement. Just go write a paper on the concept of the speed of perception being faster than the speed of light, please.
Proceed.
Yes. Okay. Do I actually have to point out to you that if I'm moving towards the source of the light, that I will encounter the photons? Say if the light was blinking, on, off, and I move into the blinking on, off, I will accelerate the speed at which the blinking on, off is taking place, quite obviously. Here's an on. I will plow into it, and then I will move forward. So the blink isn't coming to me, I'm going towards the blink. So obviously I'm going to cut that frequency down quite a bit if I'm moving into it.
The event. It's just...
Yeah, you will laugh because you're talking shite.
Yeah, somehow...
No, I'm laughing because this is silly. To have to argue that somehow because I can perceive wrong, because the radar gun gets the wrong, establishes the other vehicle going the wrong speed, that somehow we have to change physics. You know, we have to change the fundamental laws because the radar gun must be right somehow. When we know it's wrong, and we know exactly why it's wrong. Fuck. You are so fucking stupid.
As the photons will be able to receive the photons at a speed that's faster than the speed of light.
This is called the take the spade off him at that moment. digging and digging and digging. The holes just get...
No, there's no hole. See, we're talking about theoretically objects moving, say, 3/4 of the speed of light and another object moving half the speed of light. That would violate the speed of light. Now, if I was in one of those vehicles and was perceiving the other car coming at me at 3/4 the speed of light and I'm moving half the speed of light, quite obviously, I'm going to perceive the event, if I could perceive such things, as going, 1.25 the speed of light. I will see it happening faster than light speed because of the combined velocities. Obviously, it's not a scenario we can experience, but we can experience a car going 30 miles an hour and another car going 30 miles an hour, and the fact that we will perceive the passing of these two vehicles, if we're in one of them, as happening at 60 miles an hour. We will perceive it that way. Now, what is so complicated about that, you insufferable, sucky piece of shit? How the fuck can't you understand that?
Deeper and deeper. All your videos are like this. Ramble, ramble, ramble.
Yeah, no, all your videos are like this. A completely fake argument, straw man mush, just doesn't, you can't blame it on a misunderstanding. What, you're telling me you misunderstood that the thought experiment is if one of those V's, the total exceeds the speed of light? You don't understand that that's the scenario that violates the physics somehow? God, you're just incredibly, insanely wrong and obnoxious.
Dig, 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 until eventually you just abandon the spade, climb out and say, whatever, it all works.
That never happens. I always make these kind of videos. I'm not afraid of a single one of your putrid, stinking arguments. If you wish to reiterate any one of these arguments, I will counter-argue them just as I just did now, and I will decisively knock you down. I will put you where you belong. You are being an asshole in this video. Clearly, demonstratively, your argument is fallacious and silly and stupid and ignorant, and you're just digging a hole for your own credibility. So you're going to have to live with posterity with this is representing you, you stupid idiot. You don't understand that you're completely wrong? Fuck, you're dumb. You lose. You just lost decisively. And you've lost every one of these fucking arguments decisively.
In my mind.
Of course you will, because you're moving into them. You're helping them. So you can't help but do that, just like you can't help but create a tremendous amount of blue shift by also moving towards something that's reflecting light of you. So if you're moving into a light source, you're going to blue shift it.
Right. So you don't believe that galaxies...
Yes, that's right. I don't believe that blue shift happens in the space between things. Blue shift happens by emitters moving, or it happens by receivers moving. That's how you shift. Your movement shifts. The train moving is emitting, okay, the shifted sound. It doesn't happen between the train and the receiver. It happens right at the source. And it happens right at the receiver. The train could be standing still and blow its whistle, and I could be in a car moving away. And I'm still going to hear the same sound as if I was on the train. Well, if the train was moving away from me and I was standing still. Same thing I'm going to hear.
Thousands of millions of light years away, yeah, the light is redshifting on its way here.
No. So he just, I've never, ever said that. That space has, that's your theory, idiot. We've argued this before. It's your theory that the space is creating the shift. That's your argument. The extra space is stretching the thing. The extra distance is what stretches the wave, or the less distance is what compresses it. It's my argument that the source is moving forward, which means there's less time between its release of photons. clearly. And that means the frequency is higher. And the same would be the inverse. If I'm dumping balls of paint outside of the trunk of my car, okay, from behind the car, well, you could see the faster I go, the further and further and further apart the red spots on the road will be. It didn't happen on the way somewhere. It happened right when I dumped the paint out of the trunk.
Okay, you believe either that for some reason, either it's emitting, yeah, and but the fact is it doesn't account for it.
Right. Well, isn't that wasn't that just so fucking clear? Clear as mud, right? You believe something that and you certainly, you said, yeah, you really have it nailed, don't you? You've got this so under your belt, huh?
Just doesn't account for it, yeah? If you've got to presume it emits regular visible light, just like our sun, yeah? Our sun emits, and so it's got all regular light, yeah? Now, why is everything, if you was to say, oh,
yes, it's emitting tons, as my theory states quite obviously, and the frequency is completely adjustable based on the motion of something that's releasing them at a frequency. So if you're releasing something at a frequency and I'm moving forward, as stated, the paint on the road is going to get really close together. And dumping it out of the trunk, it's going to get very far apart. That's the shift. Not a complicated principle.
But yeah, the reason it's redshifted is because, yeah, we're truly hurtling away from each other, right? But, and that would seem like a good explanation, except that every galaxy is redshifted. And you realise that it doesn't really make much sense.
So this is a whole nother subject. So now he's talking about redshift and what causes it in terms of what we see of the light coming from space and galaxies. And whether we can, in any practical way, get a composite view of that redshift. I mean, is the redshift, I mean, theoretically you could argue that if these galaxies are spinning, that we should see them different colors on different sides. You know, the ones spinning away from us should look different than the ones coming towards us. Lots of things can be stated about what you're seeing in terms of the redshift, and we have to understand what photons they're measuring this redshift of. But again, I'm not right at this moment going to argue that, because that's not anything to do with the subject of the video I'm responding to. Absolutely nothing to do with it.
We're so special, and we're the centre of the galaxy. The only thing that makes sense.
Again, I don't make any arguments about where we're located in a galaxy or where we're located in the universe, and I have nothing. I'm not going to argue what redshift in a galaxy is, because I'm claiming that shift can also happen by things moving perpendicular to you. Things that have velocity will also shift when they're moving perpendicular. And that complicates things, because things moving perpendicular to us could be red-shifted or blue-shifted.
That redshift is really occurring during flight time, and has nothing to do with the conventional sense of the V1 plus V2 formula.
Yeah, well, again, you want to argue whether redshift happens in the space between things, I'll argue it, but that's a separate subject from this video.
Away from a light source, you're going to see it as redshifted.
The fact that you don't know and you can't carry all these naive counter explanations, and you don't understand that they've been naturally refuted.
Okay, so he says there's some evidence they have that shift doesn't happen at the source or at the receiver. That he has some proof that it doesn't happen by the receiver moving or by the source moving, and it happens right at that moment. The light is shifted completely at the source. See, by his theory, if I was a light year away from something, I should see more redshift than if I was a half a light year. And if I was 10 feet away, I shouldn't see any redshift at all. So the thing is leaving me at exactly the same rate, and I'm only 10 feet away. By his theory, the redshift should be far less than it would be if I'm a million miles away. By my theory, the two would see exactly the same redshift.
That is the refutation. If you want to hold that naive view, then you put Earth as...
Again, it's not a naive view, and again, I don't have to accept conclusions you jump to. You think you know exactly how redshift works, and you know exactly why the galaxies are redshifted, because you think they're all moving away from us, or more space is being injected into space. You think space is expanding, and that's your explanation. I don't sit there and I say, well, we don't really have enough evidence to draw any conclusions on that. And as I'm pointing out, there's lots of other explanations for the shift in as measured as a chemical signature. Certainly the older something is, the different the chemistry could also be. So that's another argument that can be made, frankly. I mean, compounds could have a slightly different signature 500 billion years ago or something. Well, 5 billion years ago.
And our solar system and our galaxy are slap bang in the middle of all this absolute space. Yeah, well, that's a first story. And
so he thinks he knows how big the universe is. He knows how round it is. He knows exactly what shape it is. He knows all this stuff confidently enough to know what position we are in the universe. Good luck with that.
Reasons within the Big Bang theory, you know.
Yeah, within any theory. I've already pointed out that everything should perceive everything else as moving away from itself. So it wouldn't be you're in the center, it's that everything would perceive that, because if we're all on different trajectories from the Big Bang, the moment of the explosion, nothing's moving the same way theoretically. They're all diverging. So if, like a laser beam diverges, the universe diverges as it gets older, then obviously it's like the photons in diverging light. Do you think the photons in the in the laser beam that's diverging are sitting there all saying, I'm the center of the laser beam, I'm the center of the laser beam, because everyone else looks like it's moving away from them? No. And if they weren't stupid cunts, they wouldn't sit there and try to draw conclusions they don't have enough evidence to draw yet. But clearly the explanation could just be divergence.
To reject that.
It's a frequency. The same thing happens with any other.
Right, you say it's a frequency. Which measurement do you have confirmed for you that light is... I mean, you're so good at dismissing all measurements, yeah? Prove to me.
Oh, I have to prove to you with the existing experiments that I say all are consistent with my theory. They all can be explained with a particle model of photons. So you show me the experiment where particle model can't possibly work. And I'll show you how it can possibly work.
That your light, your corpuscles are a frequency. Yeah? Just prove it. Show me the experiment.
Okay, you show me the experiment that proves it's a wave. There, we're done now, aren't we? Go ahead, show me where your electromagnetic field is. Show me light being bent by gravity. Show me light being bent by magnetism. Show me light being bent even by electricity. Show me proof of your theory that there's some field out there called the electric field and some field called the magnetic field, and that you're somehow doing something in those fields with these whatever they are, these things you're identifying as a quanta of energy of undescribed physical nature. So go ahead and prove any of that. Show me evidence of it. Show me your wave proof. Show it to me. You don't have it, asshole.
That confirms that for you. Something I wanted to play, right? This is the difference between a quantitative and a qualitative model.
Yes, no, it's illustrating perfectly the difference between a reasonable person and a fanatic, a religious kook. You think you have proof of something. I claim your evidence is weak, and I claim other theories can explain the experiments. You claim, no, it's not possible that other theories can do that. And I say, where's your evidence of that impossibility? And you say, we've already proven it. Yeah, you don't say you need evidence, you just say, I already proved it.
So I've drawn a picture of a balance of scales, and I'm sort of thinking of which one of these two pictures of the world were correct. The precision and concreteness of this idea greatly overwhelmed all of these other considerations, at least for me, is, yeah, these things are possible, but you can sort of make up just so stories for why parameters turned out the way they were. You know, many other periods.
I'm sure all of this gibberish has nothing to do with, look, it has this sissy shit in here, so this is some stupid argument about how much, you know, dark matter or dark energies in the universe, some kind of bullshit like that. So this is a little fantasy conversation about fantasy elements in the fantaverse. This is just fantaverse science.
Early on in the history of physics, maybe this is again a bad time to make arguments like this. And in any case, if it's all going to be anthropic, environmental, multiversal, whatever you want to call it, why the heck would it seem like we're on the right track with the...
Right, so Inman doesn't know this fact, that you can make just so stories for whatever you like if you don't have to be quantitative in the end.
Okay, so again, where's your quantity or quality of evidence demonstrating wave theory? Where is it? You don't have any quality evidence. You don't have any quantity of evidence. You don't have anything that demonstrates it. You don't even have formulas that are applied consistently. You don't even have explicit accuracy. You don't have anything on your side to be this fucking arrogant. You're making this claim that I can stomp on any other idea because I have established without a doubt that light is some sort of thing that's in a fieldy perturbation of some kind. It's not a thing. It's not a quanta. It's not an element that travels forever in space. It's something dependent on fields to exist. It can't exist on its own forever. It's not energy in its purest form. Photons live and die by your theory. They're somehow made into matter, and then the matter somehow remakes the photon. It remakes the energy thingy. That's your wacky theory, and you have no fucking evidence for it. None. Zero.
Right? You can always, oh, well, that's the exception. You can just say, oh, well, yeah, when I say light always runs straight, of course, when this happens, that point out it doesn't. That experiment's never been done. That experiment's faulty. Okay, yeah.
Okay, again. So there's one experiment I said never been done, and that was the silly, let's turn off the instruments and the photons read our mind and figure out that they're still supposed to make the pattern because we're not looking. Yes, that experiment was never done. That's the one I said was never done. So these assholes, Piro and this asshole, keep saying I claimed experiments were never done. So they just keep lying. There was one experiment I said was never done. Just fucking one. Alright? And I'm right. It was never fucking done. And they just keep lying. I mean, you're such a fucking liar. 7 up votes for lying. Just being a fucking liar. I mean, you cunts are so disgusting. I wish there was a God that smited liars. You're just fucking liars.
But obviously it's real, and obviously in that situation, it doesn't go straight, blah, 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 blah. Right? This whole daft science is one...
Okay, again, I've never said a light ever bends, ever. So I've always stayed consistent. It has to hit something. If it doesn't hit something, no force will move it. So you're lying again. It always needs matter to intervene. For a photon to go somewhere else, there has to be matter somewhere. There has to be a bit of matter somewhere to make it happen.
Just so story, and it's not even a good one.
Except it fits the evidence and unifies all the forces. Yes, except for the fact that it's a perfect unification theory from top to bottom and explains all the things that have never been explained, why magnets attract, why magnets repel. I mean, except for that, it's rubbish.
Frequency.
It's the same. You don't find your hypothesis in the data. Right?
I'm not doing that, so prove I did that somewhere, asshole. It's quite obvious where I found the hypothesis that started with the two-slit experiment. The two-slit experiment got me thinking about photons. Photons got me thinking about, well, what if gravity was a thing like a ton? And then I did the gravity thing, and then I went from gravity to, time dilation. Oh yeah, that could just be velocity and inertia. And then that slipped me into starting to think about magnetism, and then the polarization thing happened, and that did the atomic forces, both the nuclear forces. strong and weak, and it explained how the magnetic force creates electricity. So that's how it was done, asshole. I didn't go see what the evidence was and then force the theory to match it. No, the theory happened to exactly match it, which was amazingly perfect.
And that's because you can make just so stories.
Sound or anything else?
Yeah, well, look, I'm quite confident that you're going to be buried on the ash heap of asshole. Okay, you're just being an asshole. I'm fucking right. I've done a very good, clever thing, and you want to just keep pretending it doesn't exist. Go ahead, asshole. But these arguments aren't going to. What somebody's supposed to be. This is you're making some sort of compelling, evidenced argument here somewhere. You're just saying, no, I don't think so. It's not an argument. It's not useful. It's certainly not persuasive in any way.
You move away from it, the sound's going to get deeper. And you move into it, it's going to get higher in its pitch.
So you understand with that? Do you understand? Do you understand that with that hypothesis, that puts us, considering all the faraway galaxies are all hurtling, and not only are they hurtling faster, the further away, the faster they seem to be.
Well, okay, the faster they seem to be. Well, that's under doubt. Okay, some recent experiments have put this idea of the accelerated velocity in doubt. So maybe you're not up on that yet. But regardless, it's not my problem. You're the one saying you understand all of that physics enough to draw these conclusions. Again, I'll just argue that if I take a smoke ring from a cannon and it expands, should all the elements of smoke say, I'm the center of the universe, because all the other pieces of smoke are moving away from them? Would that be rational for them to make that kind of judgment and say, I'm the center of the universe, just because all the other pieces of smoke particle are moving away? No, it wouldn't be rational.
It's actually a law, Hubble's law, that predicts, and gauges.
Well, again, Hubble's law is over-defined in the sense that I don't know how you could make it into a law. I just don't. It's an observation. I don't know how an observation turns into a law like that.
Is the distance. That the further away they are, not only are we slap bang in the centre of the universe, but for some reason the further away they are, the faster away they're moving away from us.
And again, they're also you're looking back in time, so you're just going to ignore the fact that the evolution of the universe. So you're looking theoretically at light that was in a position that's kind of awkward when you think about the idea of the things are moving very far from where they were when you saw it. And so your relative position won't reflect that change in distance, if you know what I'm saying. I mean, clearly the things could be much further away now and the light would take even longer to get here. So the same object that we're seeing, if this theory is true, would be very far away from us now, in reality. And we probably wouldn't be seeing any waves coming from it. But anyway, let's not get into that nonsense. Motion is complicated because of the fact that it has a feature of relativity. That's one of the things it has as one of its elements, is relative perceptions and the impacts of relative motion. And again, you're saying you understand the complete dynamics of the universe enough to draw all these conclusions about what this redshift means. I'm not. It's not even part of my theory anywhere. The Big Bang, whether the universe is expanding or contracting or aging, none of that's in my theory. It's really not relevant to the physics we can know.
Conceptual thing. You didn't change the actual speed of the sound, and you're not going to change the speed of the light by perceiving it at a higher frequency, at a higher rate. So
all this is just liar upon some fire, right?
Okay, so somehow I'm lying by saying you can't change the fact that once light is shifted at its source, it's shifted. I mean, you can go away just as fast as the thing. Say if the thing's coming towards you and it's blue shifting the light. Well, if you're running away at exactly the same speed it's going towards you, then yes, you'll see it as normal light because you're blue shift, you're red shifting what it blue shifted. Duh.
Standard physics makes this model, it works.
Okay, so again, it works. I've pointed out in so many cases how it doesn't work. Okay, and I'll be doing more of that when I start doing some of these two-slit experiments, hopefully, and I'll point out how there's no explanation for the phenomenon at all. And it's not, the math isn't even accurate at all. That there is no consistent smooth gradation between the pattern. You know, the slits are in fact harsh bars. They're not smooth gradations as they should be, as the math says they should be.
It gives predictions.
Alright, again, the same bullshit. It gives predictions. You predicted the Higgs boson, okay, because your silly theoretical math says so, and then your new theoretical discovery. And that's just as silly as the prediction of the gravitational waves. We predict a jiggly line, then it'll be black holes colliding. And it couldn't be anything else. We've proven it can't possibly be anything else in the universe could be creating that jiggly line. No, that's just bullshit.
We found another formula, Einstein's formula with corrections. It works.
So again, it works. In what way does it work? So again, the argument is, what answers are you getting? Einstein guessed at the at light bending or not bending by just saying, you know, frankly, do I consider a light particle to be a gravitationally relevant particle? Now, the answer, you could have gone with either answer, but he chose, okay, and that's all. You haven't predicted anything because none of your evidence is demonstration of the fact. You haven't demonstrated the fact with demonstrative evidence.
In opposition to it is, oh, this is not right, this is just not right, this is not right, there's no real velocity.
These aren't my arguments. My arguments are pointing to the actual articles published, showing how their evidence isn't even coherent to what they've written, you know, and demonstrating how all of this theory has never been tested, in the sense that nobody brings up any of the consequences of if it's true. If it's true, certain phenomenon should exist. You have provided absolutely zero explanation for where those phenomenon are. Why don't they exist? Are you saying that you sincerely believe that every one of the lenses just happens to be a lens where there's nothing between the object and the lens? Nothing else is there. There's absolutely no other material object in the frame. Yeah. And it just happened coincidentally. Every time there's a lens, that's what happens. And every time there's something much closer to the lens, it just happens there's no lens there. Just a coincidence. A preposterous coincidence.
It's all wrong, it's not right, it's not right. Yeah.
No, so these are arguments I have made. I've put them right on the table. I've talked about the diffraction gradient situation with the beam splitter. No response to those critiques. I just did the point with the no gradation in most of the light patterns. Okay, using photons and the two slits or the single slit, the pattern doesn't do what it's supposed to do. It doesn't smoothly wave.
The line to, you know, did the experiment. The experiments were real. They didn't show me no.
So again, he did again, you know, the experiment wasn't real. This never happens. Again, one experiment I said didn't happen because it was in that stupid Dr. Quantum thing, and it has been mentioned by other physics lecturers as if it was a real experiment, and there's absolutely no evidence of anyone ever doing this experiment. I mean, that's all I can say. No evidence exists that the experiment was ever done.
I'm not seeing no paper on it. Nobody's making YouTubes on this detail, so it's all wrong.
So again, it's not evidence of a lack of evidence when something doesn't have any representation of it existing. That's not evidence that it doesn't have any, there's no evidence. No, I think that is evidence that there's no evidence.
The fake paradox. And so now we have the first arbitrarily, not arbitrarily, that's the right word, synthetic correction to reality. And that's all this will be. It's a synthetic piece of nonsense that has no real function or purpose.
Well, its purpose is...
Yeah, no, okay, so let's understand. That's all this V1, V2, it's synthetic. That was the correct word to use. It's non-real. It's not a real thing. It's not having a real conflict with a real thing. There is no real paradox because it's a synthetic thing. It doesn't exist in reality. It only exists in their crazy minds.
Based upon the hypothesis that you measure the same speed of light, no matter your frame of reference.
So again, this argument that you measure the same speed of light, yet you have no evidence to back that up, in the sense that this argument, I'm arguing that light always travels the same speed. Okay, so there's no misunderstanding, and that you can't change it. Your perception means nothing to it. So and you can't give light extra velocities in some other direction. So if you shoot light perpendicular, it goes perpendicular. And if you move a target where it's heading, it can't jump to the target. It goes perpendicular and misses that target. It can't, it's not a baseball. It can't combine velocities.
Okay, and from that hypothesis, coupled with geometry, which has been explained to you, and I made a dedicated...
I made dozens of dedicated videos to the subject. Again, you haven't proven anything whatsoever. And I just can't disprove your fantasies about what happens at the speed of light. When matter approaches the speed of light, you have a fantasy about what happens. I can't disprove your silly fantasy that light bounces and goes forward. It's a silly fantasy, in my opinion.
Dated video from the 60 symbols explaining even the maths and the geometric fundamentals which yield this formula that is very
Yes, again, I did more than a dozen videos on the subject. You didn't prove anything. You didn't demonstrate how it has to be that way at all, in any way whatsoever.
sure. And all we have is, oh, this is another bit of rubbish. Blah, 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 blah.
No, it's another pile of very weak evidence for which you're saying you have some kind of authority now to shut anybody else up about any other kind of theoretical explanation for what will take place. You say on your pile of no evidence that you have the right to tell other people you must be wrong because we're right, and we have no evidence to demonstrate it. Aren't you convinced by our no evidence? It's a religion. You're fucking religious kooks, and you're walking around telling everybody, it's so obvious, God is God, fuck you. Believe or I'll kill you. I mean, you're not playing any kind of fair game here. You're not being logical, asshole. You're sitting on a pile of non-existent evidence, and listen to how you're talking. We've proven it. We've demonstrated. It's over. We know. What do you know? You know nothing.
Yeah. There's no basis for it. Well, the basis is the basis. Yeah?
Okay, the basis is the basis. So the evidence is the evidence. Well, I say your evidence is weak. It's actually non-existent. The evidence is the evidence. But it doesn't exist. The evidence is the evidence. What don't you understand? I mean, that attitude is just, you're a joke.
Understand what the basis is an entirely different issue.
Yeah, it's an entirely different issue if I don't understand how I'm supposed to believe in stuff you haven't demonstrated with any evidence. Oh, I see.
Perception isn't reality. Moving away from something making noise doesn't change anything that's going on. It doesn't change the thing making noise. It doesn't change the noise. It has nothing to do with anything physical.
So you said.
Yes. So I say logically that's what the evidence indicates. There's no evidence proving one way or the other, in the sense that I can't prove you're silly to think that somehow the little particles know how to stretch. Okay? And I'm saying quite logically I can give metaphors for how this force is just like anything else. If you throw it like a baseball or do anything else with it, it'll do exactly what that does. Except for the speed of light, of course. But the idea of, when you have a wave function, the wave is just a mass of force, and you can change the period of the force by moving the same direction you're throwing.
Make fed up, and it doesn't change the pitch any. He really does talk like a 10-year-old.
Well, Mr. I want respect and you know, nobody's to lie about me or get, you know, you wouldn't be so superficial as to get hung up by a guy's voice.
I pointed it out that it's sort of my problem, okay? I was just being honest. So being honest doesn't matter. Like if I went to a restaurant and there was some guy who had horrible deformities, right? And, you know, his food is falling out of his mouth and it's, you know, he's having a real problem and it's really rough to watch. Now, if I honestly say, I just can't eat, you know, this ain't going to work. That makes me a bad person. I'm just saying I can't see past. He's talking like a SpongeBob or something. You know, he sounds like a cartoon character. I'm just saying. And I was just explaining to the audience, I didn't do that to his voice. I didn't distort him. Okay, that's the way he sounds. So that's why I brought it up, asshole. So that's being honest is the crime here. So just to be honest and say I couldn't see past it. Okay, it does make it seem a little silly. Did I play his video? Did I make arguments to his arguments? Yes. So how did it change how I treated the content? Do you have evidence that I treated the content less seriously? No. So you're just being an asshole.
Right. So let's make up a delusion. Okay, that somehow speeding up isn't going to change what I'm saying. So just like I said, if you're running into somebody shooting bullets at you and you're shooting them at a rate, the rate that the bullets hit you will be faster if you're running towards the bullets.
So it's very convenient for DraftScience here, because if I was to say, oh, there's evidence, they've measured the speed of light from galaxies, they've done all kinds of the entire...
Okay, so let's just understand. My simple metaphor just defends my particle theory. He claims it's somehow unproven by some evidence. I'm saying, show me the evidence that proves it can't be that way. That these force elements aren't exactly like bullets. But clearly I've explained how it's possible. It's a reasonable explanation. He claims it's an unreasonable explanation, and he has no evidence, though, citing how it's unreasonable, where it doesn't fit the evidence.
Quantum mechanics and general relativity tested in a million ways.
Okay, so again, we're citing the 1,000,000 pounds of evidence when no, it hasn't. I mean, all of the evidence of the bending of light, those experiments are all flawed. And if you don't accept that, that's fine. Show me the one that isn't flawed. The ones done in radio waves, clearly that can be accounted for as scatter in the atmosphere of these objects. So, because you're not resolving an image, you're just getting the radio waves back sooner than you should be. And so, you know, you're not demonstrating anything there besides the fact that, yes, you can bend light in all directions with just scatter.
He just said, oh, it's not good evidence, and that's never been done, and this is...
Okay, again, the accusation is it's not good enough for your arrogance. I've made the argument, it's weak evidence. You think it's strong evidence, apparently. You won't admit that it's not strong enough evidence. You won't admit that, yes, it's a little bit less than we would desire to be able to have a good foundation. You won't concede a single inch on the fact that the evidence isn't enough for you to close doors and be arrogant, obnoxious assholes. Your evidence is weak. My argument is it's decidedly weak. It's a long, long way from strong enough for you to say you have closed the door. You know the earth is round. You don't have the volumes of evidence, like, for example, I use evolution. There's volumes of evidence from all different disciplines demonstrating this, from geology, from biology, from chemistry. It's all there. Where do you have evidence like that for your obnoxious, emphatic statements? Where? I mean, not to concede it's weak evidence, it just demonstrates how you're not playing a fair game.
And I don't know about that, and I don't have to explain everything. I just want to be able to say I'm right. and those theory counts for shit.
No, so again, and I'll explain as deep as I can on all of these subjects, and I've explained in detail. I'm saying some of the details, like what kind of epoxy is holding the electron together or something. Yeah, no, I'm not going that far. But yeah, there's a mechanism, whether it's hooks or whether it actually is stickiness, who knows?
Nothing.
Any more complicated than that. You'll get hit by more bullets in a shorter amount of time if you run into them.
What? So we can't which one is smarter. We can't see them.
So a fake paradox, and so now we have an excuse to make this was a silly equation to.
In what way is it fake paradox? In what way?
Okay. I mean, I already explained it in the video. I explained it in after that, and now I'm explaining it twice 3 times in this video. It's a fake paradox because this isn't real. This is not a real thing that happens in the real universe. It has no reality. No material object will travel this. So that's why this is a fake paradox. This has to do with real things, photons moving. No fakeness. This is a fake thing. It doesn't exist as a real thing. Nothing moves that V. You can't say something has a velocity when it's not a thing and it's not moving. That's cheating.
Is it a silly equation? Okay?
Start with.
You do understand the paradox is with the general relativity set and the constant speed of light. That equation works really well as a predictive law of what will be measured in all circumstances here on Earth. Okay?
What will be perceived, like the radar gun getting the wrong answer. So again, you're defending getting the wrong answer and then using the wrong answer to create a fake paradox. You've pointed out your own fucking imbecility here. You used the radar gun as an example. The radar gun fails to get the correct answer. That's what you stated. Well, we fail to get the correct answer. This V would not be the correct answer for any question. It is not a real thing. Nothing is traveling that V. For fuck's sake.
Now we're going to make corrections to this silly equation.
And it turns out that formula is wrong. Now, as Professor Venus emphasized in the first lecture in this series, if you were here, physics doesn't destroy the balls. We don't examine laws and find out. You're right.
Yeah, well, that's part of your problem, is that you don't know when you have a rubbish idea.
Now, what you don't understand is, if you want to say you've found a new law or a new theory of physics, this stuff has been going on for 100 years or more, this really high-level development of theoretical physics.
Okay, so he calls it a high level. So Huygens, Heisenberg, dark energy, dark matter, these are high-level physics. Bending a non-existent substance, turning time into a dimension when it's clearly just a function. Yeah, that's being smart. No, that's being foolish.
Physics, and there are literally thousands upon thousands of phenomena all been measured and agree with this opposite.
I would argue that the evidence is the evidence, yes, okay, and my theory is consistent with the phenomenon observed. Now, you can create experiments inside of your $20 billion cyclotrons or whatever with your 4 million megaton detection devices and claim you found a Higgsy thing or something. But I claim, yeah, sure, whatever. Theoretical, not evidence.